Okay. Great, welcome. Welcome, and sorry keeping you waiting. I've had the great pleasure today of welcoming my 4 Nordic Prime Minister colleagues, along with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, to this Nordic summit in Stockholm. And I think we've had a productive day so far, the very first meeting between us all as NATO allies, the very first one. We started off with my Nordic colleagues and senior industry leaders discussing how this region can be more competitive in a world of increased global competition and many geopolitical tensions. We signed the joint Nordic Declaration on Competitiveness and Security, which has to focus on emerging technologies, green transition, growing defense industries. The latter, not least, connecting to our long-lasting support for Ukraine's independence and freedom. We continued to Ericsson headquarters in Kista, where Chancellor Scholz joined us. After a tour on high-tech in the high north, we discussed the interface between security, telecommunications and connectivity, and how to counter hybrid threats and how to foster civil preparedness. And tonight, after this session, we will continue our discussions over dinner on support to Ukraine and about European security in a NATO perspective. If I may say so myself, the Nordic cooperation is a pretty unique one. We are already our each other's closest partners, and combined we constitute an underestimated political and economic force. If you bring us together with our Baltic neighbors, our shared economies would qualify not only for the G20, but actually also for the G10. And in a time of war against Ukraine, we stand very close together, as long as it takes, as all of us always say and mean, not only as neighbors, but from now on also as NATO allies. Just have a look at the map and everybody can realize the magnitude of northern NATO. We share geography, and some of us also share the Baltic Sea, as you know, and all of the Nordics have strong bilateral bonds to Germany. Last year, this Nordic summit was joined by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and this time by Olaf Scholz. We are very happy to have you with us. And with that, I would like to hand over the word to the Chancellor. Please.
Thank you, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to attend the Nordic Summit again. I have fond memory the last time I was invited. That was in Oslo in August 2022. Many thanks for your kind invitation, dear Ulf and all my Nordic colleagues. This shows the high level of cooperation and trust between Nordic countries and Germany, for which I'm very grateful. Nordics and Germany are more than just neighbors. We share the same values and interests, and we cooperate closely on a wide variety of issues for a secure, free and prosperous Europe. There's one major difference to the last time I attended this gathering. Now we are all allies within NATO, as you already mentioned. This is a direct consequence of Russia's aggression against Ukraine and the return of Russian imperialism to Europe. Finnish and Swedish membership in the alliance strengthens NATO and is a security gain for all of us. In this spirit, we just discussed existing threats to our values in our societies and about threats to our common security. I greatly value the Nordic perspectives on all of these matters. In particular, the Nordic approach to preparedness is inspiring and instructive to us. I'm looking forward to enhance our cooperation on these matters. We stand united in our support for Ukraine and its defense against the ongoing Russian aggression. We will continue to provide our support to Ukraine for as long as it takes. It is great to be back in Stockholm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olaf. Please, Mette.
And thank you, Ulf. It's a great pleasure for us to be here today. And as you said, now the Nordic countries are united, finally, in NATO. The new geopolitical situation has only made it clearer that the Northern Europe countries share the same values and security interests. And we agree today that we need to work even closer together to be the region in the world where we have an ambitious green transition, strong defense industries and innovation of new technologies. It has to go hand in hand with strong welfare societies. Of course, the Russian aggression war in Ukraine is our top priority. The pressure on Ukraine is unbearable. And now we are seeing a number of Russian hybrid attacks and operations on NATO soil to pressure us. It is extremely concerning. You, Olaf, showed determination with Germany's decision to donate more Patriots to Ukraine. The US decision on the military aid package to Ukraine is another piece of good news. These are very important deliveries, but we need to do more. We need to keep supporting Ukraine so they can defend themselves and the rest of Europe. We need to donate, and it has to go very fast, more ammunition and air defense. We need to strengthen the European defense industry in all of our countries, to build up our own capacity, to be able to defend ourselves. And in all these matters, a united Nordic region and a strong Germany is crucial for the entire Europe. And that is why today's meeting is extremely important. So once again, thank you, Ulf.
Thank you, Mette. Please, Jonas.
Thank you, Ulf, for bringing us together, and Olaf for being with us. I think this is a testimony to Germany's close link to the Nordic region. I'd like to make one remark of the Nordic region's increasing relevance. We are all now part of the same European market, Norway and Iceland being part of the internal market through the EEA agreement, so we are on the same condition there, meeting the same challenges. But I believe what's happening in a geostrategic perspective makes the Nordic region relevant again, and it's up to us really to respond to that. When we met business leaders from all our countries this morning, it was striking to me to hear that they were asking for more Nordic coordination. That, of course, has to be done within the framework of the broad European setting. But we have challenges in the high-tech industries about regulations, about how we develop human skills, and how we are able to maintain our performance and the speed of the green transition. And here the Nordics are very similar, and working with our partner Germany. So I think it's up to us now really to go into how we can make that European Nordic dimension inside Europe relevant. And it is, of course, tremendously strengthened by the fact that we now are allies in NATO. So through market and economy, it's a European setting, and through security, it's a Euro-Atlantic setting. And I would highlight from Norway's side that we now have a lot of work to do with our new Nordic allies to coordinate our security, coordinate our defense. Norway was normally considering how we could receive allied reinforcement in case of a crisis. Now we see that in connection with Sweden and Finland, and we have to plan for that. And finally, I believe what is also bringing us together in a, I would say, tragic way is Ukraine and the brutal attack coming from one of Norway's neighboring states. We have a neighbor that has launched a full-scale invasion of another neighboring country, which is, of course, transformative in terms of our security perspective. And our closest partners in analyzing and understanding this challenge are the Nordics, is Germany, and the way we now have to step up coordination of aid to be relevant in supporting Ukraine in their defense is also something I think we can do amongst ourselves, but also taking that coordination inside Europe and inside NATO.
Thank you so much. Please, Petteri.
Thank you, Olaf. Good afternoon. First, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sweden and you, Ulf, for hosting this meeting. The exceptional times we have been living in recent years have further emphasized the importance of Nordic cooperation. We face many similar challenges, and the best way is to find solutions together. Today we have discussed what we can do, what can be done more in competitiveness, defense and defense industry, logistics, energy and green transition. In our current security environment, resilience and civil preparedness are the keys in the countering crises and also hybrid threats. The Nordic societies provide a stable foundation to meet crises. Still, it is possible to do more together. With Finland and Sweden's accession to NATO, the whole Nordic region is now in the same alliance, finally. In addition to Nordic cooperation, we need to deepen our cooperation with our allies around the Baltic Sea region. Therefore, Olaf, your being here with us today is important. It's very important for all of us. Situation in Ukraine, it's critical. It is not only the security of Ukraine that is at stake, but also our own security. We need to act now. Nordic countries and Germany have been Ukraine's strong supporters, and we are strongly committed to continuing our support for Ukraine for as long as needed. I call all other countries to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Petri. And finally, Iceland. Bjarni.
Thank you, Ulf, and thank you for the coordination and your hospitality here in Stockholm. Now, the very fundamental pillars of, for the Nordic region, the pillars that have secured the most prosperous region in the world, peace, thriving democracies, and open markets, have created the living standards that we enjoy today and our societies. And they are the best in the world. All these three pillars are being threatened at the moment. Peace is being threatened by the invasion into Ukraine. A war is happening almost in our backyard. And it is encouraging to see the solidarity that is shown not only here today, but also in a broader sense with the enlargement of NATO and the contributions that are being increased. A fundamental issue that has been addressed here today, but it is good to be among other NATO members that are in agreement of the importance of this issue. Democracy has also been under threat by not only the invasion in itself, which is an attack on our fundamental values, but also different kinds of threats, such as hybrid attacks and digital war is ongoing. But today we have put most of our focus on competitiveness, which is, of course, always very strongly related to the first two. And it has been encouraging to see that opportunities for the region to continue to grow are there, and we need to do more of sharing information, cooperating in different fields. And the meeting with businesses for lunch was very encouraging to see business leaders from all of the member countries come together and share information with the politicians. This was both informative and encouraging for all of us. So it's been a very prosperous day. I thank you for the hospitality and the coordination, Ulf.
Thank you so much, and it's not over yet, but now please.
We will go over to questions, and we will have time for 6 questions. We'll do them in English, preferably, and we would like you to direct your question to one of the leaders. We will start with TT from Sweden.
Yes, Patrik Docka, TT. First of all, to Mr. Scholz, Germany has been a big provider of military aid to Ukraine. When and what is most important for Ukraine in terms of future German aid, and what needs to be done to make it get there faster? And also to Mr. Kristersson, you spoke with President Zelensky earlier, he tweeted. Did you give him any promises about sending air defense systems and specifically Patriot? Will Patriot be included in the next support package for Ukraine?
Please.
So thank you for the question. Germany provided already and announced to provide military aid for Ukraine at about 28 billion. Which is quite a lot, and even this year it will be more than 7 billion, which is, I think, the biggest number and figure all over Europe. And we are very glad that we now are shared again by our United States friends with the decision of the Congress, and that so many others increased their support for Ukraine, which will be necessary for a long time. And I think this is the main sentence of our messages altogether. We will support Ukraine as long as it takes. As you know, we decided to submit now a third Patriot system to Ukraine, which was a decision that was not that easy because we don't have too many of them, but it was important to do that, and we hope that some other European countries will follow, because in the end we need a lot of munition, artillery, tanks, and air defense, and especially Patriot and the RST system from Germany, which will be most helpful.
Well, yes, I had a long and good discussion with President Zelensky this morning, and I confirmed the fact that I, as well, will be part of the peace conference in June in Switzerland. And I also confirmed that we are fully aligned with the discussions going on with the German initiative. We will come back exactly with what kind of contributions will be done from the Swedish horizon. We have done other parts of air defense previously, and we will continue to do that. Exactly how and to what amount will be released later on, but also confirm that we are in very detailed discussions with all the other countries within the F-16 coalition, formerly known, how to help with more air capacity to Ukraine. But we will come back with more precise descriptions on exactly what Sweden can deliver and what is most suitable to deliver in relation to what other countries are delivering and in relation to what we need to have in Sweden to be able to protect ourselves.
Next question goes to Dr. Andreas Rinke from Reuters.
Thank you. I would like to come back to the question of 5G, which was mentioned by the Swedish Prime Minister. More general question, since you all six have been at Ericsson, is that a sign, a signal that you all of your countries want to replace Chinese components in the 5G network when they are still existing? More specific question to Swedish and Finnish Prime Minister, since you have two companies who could provide components in this field, do you support that the EU sets quota how many European components should be used in 5G and 6G networks? And Chancellor, one question for you. The German government hasn't made a decision yet how to enforce a stricter law on critical infrastructure, also meaning the 5G network. When is the German government supposed to actually have an agreement on that? Thanks.
Thanks. If I start off, I think all these decisions are national, as you know, even though there is a European toolbox to be used, and many countries use that. I think that we can unite. There is a growing concern because there is a connection between security, telecommunications, and the relation to different countries. So I think there is a good reason for having this discussion about secure connectivity, which we had today. And of course, there was no coincidence that we have Ericsson and we have Nokia in Finland that are two major players on this field. So of course, there is some connection to that. But I think the growing concern is about the geopolitical tensions and the relation to technology, primarily telecommunications. Well, there is no quota discussion right now. There is absolutely a concern about limited market access in China. Basically, there is. On the other hand, these players are very big in other parts of the world.
It was very important to have the talk with Ericsson, as it would be important to have a similar talk with Nokia, to be very clear in this field. I already had them. The representatives of the company visited me in Berlin, and we had used several occasions for discussing intensely about techniques and politics that are related to this. So let me state first, one of the questions of economic progress and technological progress in Europe is the question of our telecommunications networks, and especially of 5G and later the implementation of 6G. It's very important to see what are the possibilities for our economies coming from that. And this is very clear to my point of view that we should go into using 5G standalone. I have not learned it today the first time, but I discussed it quite often, but I will repeat. We have to make it happen that this most progressive technology is the typical one very soon in Europe, and that we are not falling behind other continents, especially not because we have the most progressive technology companies in telecommunication in Europe. And this is these two Scandinavian companies, which are so successful, not just in Europe, but also globally. And what they also offer to all of us is very safe technology, looking at security questions. Coming to the other part of your question, I will say we have a very strict legislation on security and telecommunications, which is something we are looking at continuously, and we do so.
Next question goes to Danish Ritzau, Rasmus Vanneborg.
Yeah, thank you very much. The first address is to the German Chancellor. The German stand in the Gaza Strip conflict has been making a lot of controversials around the world, creating international debate, that the position and the support for Israel has been pretty firm. I know it's a sensitive topic, but are you afraid that the German past will make it equal, will make the criticism of Israel's warfare equal to anti-Semitism? And to Jonas Gahr Støre, you have been pretty vocal from the beginning of the conflict in your criticism against the Israeli war actions. Are you missing other countries taking that stand as well?
So I think this was a question and also a political point of view, which you took with your question. But coming to the question and answering it, Germany has a very clear view on this topic. We condemned the brutal attack of Hamas against Israeli citizens in October of the last year. It is still something which is not easy to remember, because we saw all the pictures. We saw how people were treated, murdered, raped, and this all taken on videos to show it to the whole rest of the world. It was what it was, a brutal anti-humanitarian attack against people willing to dehumanize men and women and children, and this is something we never can accept. So we are so clear saying that Israel has every right to fight back against Hamas. While saying this, we are also very clear in what is necessary to do. First, the way of doing this war against Hamas has to follow international rule of law and international rules, and we're very much looking to this. Second, we are absolutely clear there must be enough humanitarian aid coming to Gaza. My request was always that it should be about 500 trucks a day, every day, so that there is enough support with food, with medical aid, and all what is needed in Gaza. And we also were very clear in speaking about the situation in the West Bank, saying that settlers' violence cannot be tolerated. And coming to the next point, looking at the future, we are very clear saying there must be a two-state solution. So this is what we support intensely, saying that peaceful cooperation between Israel and the Palestinian state consisting of West Bank and Gaza is what we are aiming for. And I think that especially the last months have shown that this is something that is more than realistic, because if we see how the neighbors in the region are acting, there is a good chance for a security partnership that could come out of this very heavy conflict with these neighbors, with the Palestinian state and with Israel together, organizing security together. And coming to the question that is so important at this stage, we are very clear saying that there should be not a broad attack against Rafah, because we think there are too many peoples living, and it is not. We have no idea how this could happen without too many civil casualties, which could not be accepted. So this is also a clear message. And what I'm telling you is nothing new. I said this also in Israel, in the press over there, and discussed it with many people, and with the Prime Minister, with the President, with opposition leaders. And I think it is important that this whole story of our view on the question is well understood. And this is what we have to do.
Well, I think the Chancellor gives a good summary of something I can subscribe to. You know, a very clear condemnation of the terrible, horrific attacks on the 7th of October. I spoke to President Herzog the same day. It is a trauma in Israel and an absolutely horrendous thing. And I've also stated that Israel has the right to defend itself, very clearly. But then we have also been referring, as the Chancellor said, to international law, to proportionality. And we have made our voice clear that we believe that the warfare has gone beyond that in terms of civilian casualties and immense destruction. So our position as we speak now is that there needs to be a ceasefire, there needs to be access of humanitarian aid, there needs to be release of hostages, and there needs to be organized thinking of the next day, what comes after. So on all of these issues, what happened today, you know, Norway have a long story here of being friends of Israel and friends of the Palestinians, deeply concerned that what happens in Gaza will not strengthen Israel's security for the medium and longer term. So this has to be brought to an end. And then we have to devote our attention to what the Chancellor said. What will a two-state solution look like? And what needs to be the process to get there? And you may say that never have we been farther away from being able to realize a two-state solution, but never have there been that many who say that this is the solution that exists for the next day. The Arab countries, discussions in the US, and in Europe. And I believe that although there were differences around this line, last week's vote in the United Nations about Palestine in the UN showed, I believe, an expression of the importance of giving the Palestinians a voice in the UN, highlighting that they need to get expression of that statehood at some stage. And then finally, I believe that we now spoke about Ukraine in the last questions. We are being watched by the global south. Are there double standards here about how we comment on Ukraine and how we comment on what happens here? This is not an easy question, but we have to be aware of it. And that's why I think a life is a life, a dead child is a dead child, and we have to be very open and clear about it. I think now we have to devote our efforts working with American allies, with Europe. Norway is chairing the donor support group to the Palestinian Authority. We will have a meeting by the end of May, and where we have to make the Palestinian Authority capable of managing in the first stage and then running Palestine, not only on the West Bank, but also in the Gaza Strip. And my final remark is that we focus on Gaza, but there is an immense tension growing on the northern border with Lebanon. There is an immense disorder unfolding because of settlements on the West Bank, and there is the Iran dimension. So this is a boiling pot that we have to follow very closely.
And with that, we take the next question, which is Yle from Finland. We'll ask to have one question only.
Okay. One more question of Ukraine to all of you. Russia is now bombing heavier than ever before, and situation is very dramatic for Ukraine. Is there some support you can send them immediately, so we don't see Ukraine to lose the war this week or next week or in close future?
Would you mind starting?
As I already mentioned, we delivered and we will deliver altogether 28 billion of military aid, which I think is quite a lot, and we are always looking what we can do more. What we learned from this war is that we have to increase also our productions, because they were not prepared for a long war, and having continuous production of munition, for instance, and all the shells that are needed in this very conflict. So I think this is one of the lessons learned, and we are constantly improving our production and increasing the production of the necessary support. One of the very good advantages of the debates we had in Europe the last time is that there came up an agreement that we will do procurement not just in Europe, but also all over the globe if we find things that we could send to Ukraine, which will be helpful for their defense. And I think this was a big breakthrough, because we together did it from our side, but it was not a common European position. Now it is, and which I think is an advantage. And this is combined with many other decisions we took. If I may refer to the European Union, increasing the fiscal support with altogether 50 billion for this and the next years. We increased the military assistance fund, which is now able to support Ukraine. And we decided to use the interest coming from the frozen assets to buy weapons for Ukraine. I think 3 very important decisions, and they altogether give us the chance that we will do the necessary.
Thank you. Mette.
I agree with what the German Chancellor just said. And when you ask what can we do in the coming weeks, the good thing about Patriot system is that you can very easily deploy them. It's a part of their nature. And Ukraine needs 6 or 7 systems. Germany has already, on top of what you have donated before, delivered 1 more. So we need 5 or 6 more European systems. They are in Europe. And I hope that everyone in Europe are listening to what General Secretary of NATO said a few weeks ago, when Stoltenberg said it's better to have air defense in Ukraine now and than to have the same systems in NATO countries. So there is still space of delivering systems from NATO countries to Ukraine. They are fighting at the moment. It's not going in the right direction. And the main reason for the losses on Ukraine's side now is because of lack of air defense. And we have the systems. So if we have only one wish, all of us, it should be to deliver air defense systems as quickly as possible. And at the same time, ensuring ammunition. Together with the Czechs, many of us are working to ensure what they need. We need to support them on drones. And in our coalition with the F-16s, the first fighter planes from Denmark will be in the air in the coming month from now. Very, very important for the Ukrainians to see the planes in the air. And supporting production inside Ukraine. But right now, it's air defense, and we should deliver it.
Petteri.
Thank you very much. Situation in the battlefield, it's critical, and it's time to react now. We have to do more. I'm very happy that United States made decision 2 weeks ago, and now it's possible to have more weapons, strong weapons, to the battlefield. And I want to also thank Olaf and Germany how much you have done to help Ukraine, and all the Nordic countries have worked and done a lot. We just decided our 24th package of military support to Ukraine, total amount of 2 billion, which is a huge amount of money comparing the size of our economy. But we have to continue. Situation is critical. We don't want to see new Mariupol in Kharkov. That's why every single country in the West, in the European Union, have to do all what they can immediately, and also in the longer term, we have to ramp up our defense industry.
Thanks. Okay.
We have Bloomberg. Then we go to Neue Berliner Redaktionsgesellschaft.
I would like come back to the question of military aid to Ukraine. I wanted to ask you, Prime Minister Frederiksen, you said encouraging the other countries to provide more Patriots and also more artillery ammunition. Is there also sort of a growing frustration with the reluctance of the European partners to deliver? And does this question have the potential to be actually a divisive question in Europe? And maybe Chancellor Scholz, if you want to answer that one as well. Thank you.
No, I don't see any signs of division. I see the opposite. And then that's one of the only few positive things we can say about this war in Ukraine. We have never been more united than what we are today. It goes for the European Union. It's stronger now than it were 2 years ago. And it goes for NATO. We are a stronger alliance today because of Finland and Sweden entering NATO. So I don't see any signs of division. But we have to admit, all of us, that what they need at the battlefield has to come faster than what we have been capable of, even though we have donated extremely amounts of money and direct military equipment. They need more because the Russians are being so aggressive as they are, and you cannot protect a country without air defense systems. It's simply impossible. So I don't feel any frustration, but I think all of us need to feel the sense of urgency. And the question we have to ask ourselves as Europeans is that we have shown for more than 2 years our willingness to protect Ukraine, but are we also willing to let them win this war? And they cannot win it on their own. They have to do it with equipment from us. And of course the answer is we need to be willing not only to defend Ukraine, but to let them win this war. So we need more help, and we have to speed up, we have to scale up in a short-term perspective, also in a long-term perspective, as the German Chancellor were talking about just a few minutes ago.
I will be very brief. I could underline that we have to do more, and this is very important, that the debate is not just ending with the debate, but with real decisions taken all over Europe. I know it's quite difficult due to the fiscal situation of some of the countries, due to the existence of military equipment, due to the reality of production sites, but in the end it is our task to find solutions, and this is why we invited others to follow when we started, for instance, again with so many activities in air defense that are important. And I will continue with underlining also that I see Europe and NATO really united. And if you look at the plans of Putin and what is the outcome of it, he never expected that the outcome of his aggression would be a more united Europe and a more united NATO, that 2 strong member states with Finland and Sweden entered NATO, that there is more deployment of defense activities alongside of the eastern border of Europe, and that we are doing more air policing, and that we increase our productions, and that we see that now the big majority of member states are able to say that they are now spending 2% of their GDP for defense, which was an aim that was looked for since a long time, but not every country was able to do it soon. Now, more or less every country did it, and the last will follow. So this is a big change. And if you count all these things together, just to understand our strengths for deterrence and for the ability to defend our alliance, I would say it is no longer the money we spend, because this is a lot. The question is how we can better cooperate, to use the scales of our productions, to use the cooperation to make it that strong as the investment could develop it.
Or as President Biden put it, I think he said that Putin wanted to have a Finlandization of Ukraine, but he got a NATOification of Finland and Sweden. In the long term, that's a big, big thing.
Thank you. And with that, we conclude this press conference. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much.